Day for the Lakers and LeBron James after Kyrie Irving announced yesterday that he's going to opt into his $36.5 million option with the Brooklyn Nets. The Lakers were the only team that was interested in working on a potential sign and trade deal with the Nets for Kyrie. So what now for LeBron and these Lakers? I mean, it's just so tough to think about. And Zach, I think this Lakers team had hoped Kyrie would join them, but now doesn't look like that's going to happen. What now for them?
Yeah, I know we're mandated to talk about the Lakers and what now, there's something they could actually do. The reality of the Lakers is they have no flexibility and no assets. So what now? What now is hope, and I think this is reasonable, that Anthony Davis gets healthy and resembles the Anthony Davis who dominated in the bubble and looked like the perfect co-star for LeBron James. And I think that's totally reasonable. The second what now is they're going to have to hope that Talen Horton-Tucker and Kendrick Nunn, I know those names are not sexy, become the players that the Lakers thought they were going to be last season. Kendrick Nunn didn't play due to injury. And then they're just going to have to nail the minimum free agency signings. And as they showed last year, if you sign 6 guys to the minimum, 2 or 3 might work out. You'll get a Malik Monk, you'll get a Carmelo Anthony. The others, it's sort of just a roulette wheel. But they're going to need to nail some of those and get creative because, the Kyrie thing was a long shot. There were a couple different avenues to get there. Neither of them worked. Now it's time for plan B. And the reality is the Russ trade, which just hasn't worked, has left them with very few avenues to do anything else.
And that's the thing about this, right? The thing about that, as Zach said, this was the Lakers' get-out-of-jail-free card. Yeah. They were in an untenable situation, and this was the one way they could get a player that could get them into championship contention. You look at the Western Conference now, to me, the Clippers, the Warriors, the Mavericks, the Grizzlies, the Clippers, and Denver, all better than them. 6 teams already better than them.
Clippers so good they're better twice.
Well, I did say them twice. Golden State's in there too. There's 6 teams that are clearly better than the Lakers. So to me, you're already talking about them being a play-in tournament team. Now, you could say, all right, as Zach said, Anthony Davis is back to what he was before. LeBron James is healthy. They nail some of these minimum signings. That gets them somewhere in contention in the West. That doesn't make them the favorite in the West, even if those guys are that good, because they have so many other things they have to answer. This was the one way you could say the Lakers are a championship level team. It didn't happen. And now they're just stuck in this position where they can be pretty good, but they can't get to the place everyone wants them to be.
Yeah, Seth, I really think that, Kyrie was the way for them. Without Kyrie, I don't know. But remember, LeBron and AD, when AD was all world, basically, they won it all. I mean, could this team come close to that?
People forget that AD averaged 20, 10, and 2 blocks. Only 5 guys in the history of the NBA have done that. And guys like Kareem and Shaq and others. So, look. In a perfect scenario, AD's who he is. And AD is one of the top 10 players in the NBA. LeBron James is one of the top 10 players in the NBA. What they need to do is they need shot makers and they need floor gamers to surround those guys. Can they find them? I don't know. And then the final piece is you've got to find a way. I don't know what his role is going to be, but you have Russell Westbrook. You have him for one more year. He's not who he was. But can you find a role and get him to buy into a role where he can help and be a winning player? What that role is, he's got to pick his spots. He's got to be more committed defensively. But you've got to find a way to reach that guy because you're not getting rid of him. No one's taking his salary. He does have ability. Now, is he the player he was 5 years ago? No, he isn't. But he can be a productive player if he buys into a specific role. But they've got to get younger, and they've got to get shot makers, they've got to stay healthy. If LeBron plays 70 games, if Anthony Davis plays 70 games, I'm not saying they're going to win an NBA championship, but they're going to be better than you think. Because in the playoffs, the one thing we do know is LeBron can take over a game. Anthony Davis can take over a game.
There's a reason Adrian reported the Lakers were the only team interested in Kyrie in a sign and trade. They were the only team that was desperate enough that they had to try to get him.
Yeah, they had no choice, basically, is what you're saying.
And they had no shot because they had no assets.
Yeah, and so, Zach, Seth mentions the idea of finding a role for Russ, getting him to accept that, getting him to buy into that. Do you see that happening?
Darvin Ham mentioned that when he got hired at his press conference. We're going to get Russ all in on defense. Maybe. Yeah, but we've been having this discussion for 10 years. Oh, my God, what would it be like if Russ set ball screens for LeBron James or whoever is the other ball handler on his team? He'd be great at that. He could be like a Draymond Green short roll facilitator. What if he cut more on offense? What if he really dialed in on defense? Like we've been saying this since literally 2013 or 14, and it never ever happens. Why should we expect it to happen now? And Seth mentioned the bubble when they won the title. Yeah, that's true. They won the title. LeBron and AD were great. You know what they had around LeBron and AD in the bubble? A supporting cast that made sense. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Alex Caruso, Danny Green, Kyle Kuzma, all those dudes are gone, and they don't have a supporting cast that makes sense yet. Maybe they can get there. Maybe they get some internal development from THT and Nunn and Austin Reeves and all that. But that's a totally different team. It doesn't exist anymore, and they've got to find a new team. And it's really, even with those two guys in the middle of it, it's a tall order for them to get into that top 3 or 4 in the West, which is just loaded, as Tim said.
That's the thing about the Westbrook trade. That's the thing about the Westbrook trade that's such a killer and was from the moment they made it. They had a team that fit around AD and LeBron, and they went all in on the 3-star model. But the problem was they picked the worst possible guy in the league to fit with LeBron James at the end of his career. I mean, it just was a back-breaking decision on multiple fronts because it robbed them of the flexibility they had around those guys, and it put them in a position where now they're stuck with this guy who doesn't fit with their team, and they can't move on from.
All we're talking about today are these teams with the 3-star model and how many problems it creates. And I guarantee every team is still trying to get the 3-star model done. And that is the crazy thing about the NBA. All right, let's play a little game of like or don't like with Zach Lowe. You ever read his column? He's got what he likes. I love that part. So we're going to do this with you, Zach. I'm going to throw out some scenarios. You're going to tell me if you like them or not. John Wall is expected to join the Clippers. Like it or don't like it?
Like it, even if it's going to cost them a good backup center and Isaiah Hartenstein. But John Wall's a good fit. He has a dynamism that they haven't had, just like quick north-south guy. And when they play 5 out with no center, which I think they're going all in on, good luck staying in front of all the off-the-dribble creation they have now. Like it.
Oh, if he is healthy, he is dangerous.
People also forget John Wall, terrific guy setting up 3-point shooters. Those spread lineups are going to be killing.
Oh, absolutely. What about Zion getting the rookie max extension? Like it or don't like it?
Love it. I suspect the Pelicans will try and negotiate some injury protections like the Sixers did with Embiid. But you're the New Orleans Pelicans. You're a small market team with no history of winning. You cannot quibble about a guy like Zion Williamson despite the injury and conditioning issues. You just do it and move on.
Okay, let's talk about another guy we're always talking about. James Harden gets a max extension. Like it or don't like it?
Are we talking about a 5-year max here? Because I think the only people that would really like that are James Harden and like the 10 closest confidants to him. James Harden is almost 33 years old. He didn't look like the James Harden of old at all last year. We really haven't seen that guy other than glimpses of it in Brooklyn when he was early. So I just don't think that's in the cards. A shorter term max or an opt-in and a couple years tacked on at the max, that's fine. That's Joel Embiid's championship window. Let's go now. You just can't attach yourself to a $55, $60 million James Harden deal when he's 37, 38 years old.
Just to even think about that boggles the mind. So, Tim, let's stop down and talk about Harden. What do you think is the ceiling for Harden and the Sixers?